Irish listeners, we are here to preview Notre Dame's home opener, a top 20 matchup with the Texas A&M Aggies coming into South Bend. Mike, I will be there in person for the home opener, cheering on from Section 19 for this one. What do you got up for the weekend? What are your game watch plans here for the opener?
So I actually have a wedding this weekend. So it's a friend of mine who lives in LA, Notre Dame grad. Actually, so he's a listener of the podcast. So he'll be listening to this. But I'll be around a lot of Notre Dame fans. I will certainly be getting updates during the game. I will be checking my phone. I will record the game, so I will watch it when I get back. I don't think I'm going to be able to pull off what I pulled for Penn State, where when I was traveling back during the game, I just turned off my cell phone, went completely dark for 6 hours, could not be reached, came back, watched the game, having no idea what happened. I think when I was walking through the airport, I saw there was a headline on one of the screens of the bar, but I quickly looked away and it didn't ruin it. So I came home and I experienced it, live essentially, which was great. I'm definitely not going to be able to do that for this, but I will be following it live and I will watch the game in detail when I get back home. But it's a great matchup. This is an opportunity for Notre Dame to get back on the right track, to show that we are hopefully the team that we thought we would be entering the season, which is a contender. So, and I don't think there's a better way to make a statement showing that you are that team than playing in a big time matchup against a team like Texas A&M. Now, before we dive more into that, Brett and I want to call out something that we're launching with our show. And we've actually technically already launched it, but it's this concept of golden takes. So Brett released one earlier this week on the transfer portal. The idea is that these are 5 to 10 minute segments, in some cases deeper dives, but no longer than 5 or 10 minutes on topics that we may not have time to cover during the normal course of our shows. So these could be things about like personal stories on a player. I mentioned the transfer portal, but basically topics that where if you're interested in Brett and I's thoughts on college football or maybe topics that aren't necessarily just game previews or analyses of certain teams, these are things that would hopefully interest you. And one other comment on it is that these are not hot takes, these are not cold takes, these are golden takes. They are just right, exactly how Goldilocks would like them. So I think I think this is something that hopefully our listeners and viewers should enjoy. We'll be putting them on YouTube, so obviously encourage you to check them out there. And if you enjoy our content, certainly subscribe.
Absolutely. Go hit that subscribe button if you like the show. Pass it along to a friend. These golden takes are only on YouTube. We'll continue, of course, with our regular programming wherever you get your podcast here on our usual episodes like this one. Mike, we're really excited to have another guest on the show. This time, it's the Agnox podcast, covers all things Texas A&M football. And with that, let's turn it over to my interview segment here where we go deep on this preview from the inside lens of the Aggie fan base. Welcoming our guest to preview Texas A&M, we've got Tom Ag from Agnox, a podcast dedicated to all things Texas A&M football. Tom, welcome to the show. Thanks for taking the time. Would love to hear a little more just about how long Agnox have been covering it and kind of how y'all approach Texas A&M football.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, Brett. Agnox started, I think, in September 2022. And I say I think because we didn't exactly realize how it was going to go. But it started in September 2022 between me and a few of my college roommates from A&M. And we just wanted to create the content that was basically you sitting in our living room talking A&M football. That concept now is we cover the team, we do a weekly show, we do live shows pre and post game, and we also have online articles and blogs. So it's definitely grown from just a podcast.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for joining the show. I know it's always good to get inside, maybe I'll say behind enemy lines and inside how the opponent thinks about a matchup going in. Diving right into it, we did our season schedule preview show. I came across a stat, frankly, it surprised me. Like I had to do a double take that Texas A&M was the highest scoring SEC team in conference play last year. I think Notre Dame fans saw a rock fight when we played against you. I think both offenses probably weren't at their best, and I think we maybe caught a break not getting Connor Wegman instead of Marcel Reed. With Reed coming back now into year 2 as the starter, what do you see as his upside? What are the weaknesses or maybe areas you look for him to take a step forward this year?
With Marcel, it's this year we really haven't seen too much of the playbook, so it's hard to say with what you've said or what you've seen this year. But the upside seems as high as he can go. Obviously, we need to see the throwing game improved. So on the deep ball, week 1 he missed Casey Concepcion, which would have been his 3rd touchdown of that game, by about 10 yards deep down the field. So we got to work on that. But in terms of running the ball, he's shifty as all get out. And then in terms of offensive coordinator and working well, that's just the last area I'd say he needs to get better at, and having a deeper understanding of how Colin Klein, our offensive coordinator's brain works. Um, but overall, I'd say a solid 8.2 out of 10.
He certainly seems like, high production when he's on, maybe a little bit of the take care of the football, and he's dynamic. Doesn't take care of the football can lead to some big moments, obviously, the other way. He's coming though at this with really great run game supporting him as well. All SEC, Le'Veon Moss at running back, and what some consider one of, if not the best, returning offensive lines in the country. This is an area I think Notre Dame struggled with. Miami's offensive line held up well in the run game, maybe struggled in generating pass pressure. Seems though like this could be another strength on strength in the trenches. How do you assess the Texas A&M offensive line coming into this game?
So they all are returning, yes. I will say, like, they've played well to this point. They played a lot better than they played last year to this point in the season. In terms of going against Notre Dame, it's really going to come down to who's controlling A and B gap. A&M's not a big run to the outside team. They're going to take a lot of their passes over the middle on slant routes to KC, or they're going to hit the tight end doing a seam or an out route. Um, Everything's going to be dominated by the A-B gap. And in terms of A&M going to Notre Dame and doing what they've done against inferior talent, I don't know. This is like the one thing I'm 50-50 on going into this game. Because like
Hmm.
you said, it's best on best. I'm not sure who's going to have the upper hand in that. Um,
Interesting. As you look at the rest of the skill position players, you mentioned his name now, KC Concepcion, a couple times, NC State transfer. Notre Dame fans know him a little bit. We played him his freshman year on the road in Raleigh. Obviously, that was a couple of years ago now. Also, bring in Mario Craver out of the portal from Mississippi State. Seems like your top 2 weapons out of the portal. How's that compare to where this roster was last year? I know it's early on, hard to tell against, UTSA and Utah State, but is this passing game for real? Is it the skill guys that can help this offense kind of take that next step forward for Mike Elko?
Uh, it's the realest it's been in 3 years. This is a breath of fresh air to A&M fans. All we could do last year was run the ball, whether it was the quarterback or the running back. Being able to throw the ball for any amount of yards that is over 150, that is awesome. Let's keep doing that. But in terms of where we were at, so last year, our best receiver was Noah Thomas. And to give context on this, Noah Thomas transferred to Georgia. I'm not sure Noah Thomas has 100 yards or even 50 yards receiving to this point in the year, and that's with the Georgia talent he's going up against.
Hmm.
So getting Craver and getting KCC out of the portal this year it's going to be the thing that defines our season by far. And keep an eye out for KCC. I'm not sure how he's going to do against, again, like a power 4 competition, but from what I've seen so far, this guy's going to be this guy's electric. He's fun to watch. Doesn't matter what team you're rooting for. He's insane.
Absolutely. Seems like, someone Notre Dame fans can appreciate. We had a guy that Will Pauling transferred in 2 years ago, was electric for Wisconsin. Last year, production really dropped off because the quarterback play dropped off. KC Concepcion seems really similar to that. Had a stellar freshman year, maybe dropped off with just poor quarterback play, but now in a better system. Feels like he's right back to where he was a couple years and is just really producing at a high level for you guys early on.
It makes you ask the questions like, why can't we get these guys out of high school? What?
Recruiting's tough. There's boom and bust. It feels like all the time. Flipping to the other side of the ball on defense, Notre Dame fans know how great of a ball coach Mike Elko can be on that side. We obviously had him as defensive coordinator prior to Marcus Freeman. And it seemed like this was an area that, at least from our perspective, kind of surprised that Elko hasn't been able to deliver that top 5, top 10 defense yet with all of the talent at Texas A&M. How should we think about Texas A&M now in year 2 with Mike Elko, and trying to get his defensive fingerprints built into the program?
Basically, one thought on this: if you're going to beat us, it's going to be before the 10-minute mark of the third quarter. Everything
Hmm.
after that, you are locked down. Everything is shut down. You barely get first downs. I don't know. I don't know what it is either. It feels like Bateman, our defensive coordinator, makes the defensive play calls up until the 10-minute mark in the third quarter, and then Elko is furious with it, and then he takes back over. It's insane. They always say the halftime adjustments, whatever. It's actually crazy. But I think there's a lot going on for football. Like you said, recruiting is crazy earlier. So he's getting pulled in that direction. He's last year with the Wegman thing, making the Marcel decision. He's getting pulled in that direction. He's getting pulled in a lot more directions this year than he would have been, back in the day whenever he was the A&M defensive coordinator or he was the Notre Dame defensive coordinator. But all of us, the Aggie fandom, I think that defensive mindset of Elko has now shifted to like the disciplined mindset. You could taste it
Hmm.
in the air in College Station the first day Mike Elko was the head coach. Jimbo didn't run a tight ship. Uh, no, Elko does not let anything fly. You could feel it in the air. You could see it on the field, and I think that's kind of where the defensive traits have gone to.
That makes a lot of sense. Certainly felt that discipline when he was in South Bend. I think another big topic, if you think about A&M the last, I don't know, even decade, it's just been, stud after stud on the defensive line. You had Miles Garrett, Von Miller. Last year alone, there were 3 guys drafted in the first 2 rounds of the NFL draft in Nick Scorton, Shamar Stewart, and Shamar Turner. Those guys are gone. Who else is that next wave of impact players in the front 7 that Notre Dame fans should have their eye on? Of, hey, this is the guy. If someone's getting after the quarterback, this is the guy to be watching for going up against our offensive line.
It's the obvious answer. He made 3 sacks in a row on 3 plays last week. Cassius Howell.
Hmm.
I- if he gets hot, look out. He's from what I've heard, he's like a savage animal that cannot be contained if he gets angry or if he gets like on a roll. So be careful on that one. And then in terms of another person in the front 7, he's been around forever now. Torian York. If there's somebody making a play within the first 5 yards of the field, it's going to be Torian York. So getting into the second level, you got to deal with Torian. If you want to throw the ball, you're going to deal with Cassius.
When you think about the talent y'all lost here in Scorton, Stewart, and Turner from a year ago, does this defense, like, is that a step back for you guys, or is this just you got so much depth you're just in reload mode from recruiting? How do you think about just replacing 3 guys that were drafted in the top 2 rounds?
Well, you said it earlier. It's like if A&M was to be good and like Alabama's run in one thing, it's we've had that one defensive line guy that is an absolute stud. Um, Bama's now learning what it feels to be average. Like maybe A&M's like learning what it feels to be average on the defensive line because we don't know who's going to be that next guy who steps up. And my guess is they're going to keep hitting the transfer portal until one of these freshmen that they got in this 2026 recruiting class comes able. But right now, it's up for grabs, and I think the leader is Cassius Howell.
Interesting. And looking back then to the rest of the defense, seems like secondary, at least as we've kind of read Texas A&M beat writers, might be the area for offenses to take advantage, possibly leaky on kind of the explosive big plays. What area of the defense concerns you the most, or you think as you stare at Notre Dame as an opponent, might be the mismatch that, if Notre Dame does win this game or does put a lot of points on the board, what's that one thing you're looking for as an A&M fan that could be the kind of weak spot in the defense?
So, say your offensive line is getting some push it on the ground exclusively, and say you're running opposite side of Torrey and York, that's going to scare the crap out of me. At safety
Hmm.
specifically, our safeties have been absent this year. You saw it against UTSA on that 75-yard run, even though that running back looks like the next Barry Sanders. He's crazy. But you saw our safety, Bryce Anderson, nowhere to be found on that. And really, you've just seen the defensive backfield on the ground games pretty much, they're non existent. So if you are able to break into the second level, that's going to be, you're going to kill us. You're going to win. And in terms of like just passing the ball wise on the secondary side, our corners are, I wouldn't say anything great about them, but I also wouldn't say anything bad about them. They're competent corners. You're going to have to deal with Will Lee. Will Lee, there's a lot of hype around him. He's pretty standard run of the mill corner. He's not going to give up too many big hits. He might give up a 15 plus yard shot here or there, but it's not going to be anything crazy. You have a roaming back kind of in Scooby Williams who he'll make some plays. He's not going to give up anything crazy. And then the one guy who will give up something crazy is Tyreek Chappelle, who's been here for 5 years now. He's number
Hmm.
7. So if you see a deep ball down the sideline and it's number 7 in single coverage, you should feel confident about that.
Advantage Notre Dame if number 7 streaking down the sideline. We will jot that one down. This one's interesting too, in that Notre Dame's explosive passing game, for all the offensive success that we've had the last few years, it's not been because of the deep ball. It's not been because of explosive wide receivers. And whenever we preview an opponent, we're kind of diving in and it's like, oh, they're really like a spot to get them is maybe explosive passing or weakness over the middle, etc. We've never been the team to take advantage of that. Now, recruiting's better. We've gone to the portal. We think we've got the guys a wide receiver. CJ Carr felt like the training wheels were on him in Miami, so maybe wasn't the full playbook. I think that's a really big question mark on our side too. Of is this finally the year where, if that is the way to beat a team, clearly, I think the strength of Texas A&M's defense is in the front seven. Can Notre Dame take advantage in the passing game and have a more balanced attack that's not just relying on Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price running the football? I think that's a really big question mark on our side, that when we get into these matchups where it's like, gosh, you might need that deep ball against number 7. Can we dial that one up? Do we have the guys that can go and do that offensively? Yet to be seen last year, yet to be seen in game 1 of this year. I think it's something, Notre Dame is looking to take that step forward. Something I'll certainly be keeping my eye on. And one other question before we maybe get into score predictions and how you feel about the game overall. You're 2-0. You've played the UTSA Roadrunners and the other Aggies from Utah State. Feels like it's always kind of hard to read into the early season matchups. It's probably limited playbook. You're probably not, running Le'Veon Moss 25 times a game. Any takeaways you have from those first 2 games that are making you feel more hyped for A&M this year, or gosh, there's this one or two thing that's like, here we go again, like maybe you're more concerned after those first 2 weeks?
Honestly, something that like brought a tear to my eye the other day. And it comes back to that Elko culture discipline thing. We had wide receivers blocking 20 yards down the field.
Hmm.
Never seen that before. So huge on that. That gives me hope. And then for your listeners, Aggies have this thing called BAS. It's called Battered Aggie Syndrome. Um, our nicknames are Texas 8 and 4. We get it a lot. Like it's really hard to have hope from where we're from. And I'm starting to have a little hope for this year. If anything, Elko gives me confidence. So
That's so funny. My buddies have a text thread that every year, right before the opener, we all text each other the same meme. That's like we're ready to get hurt again.
Yeah.
Like, we're all diehard Notre Dame fans, and we all talk about all the championships we won, and we've won zero in our lifetime. And so we're ready to be hurt again. Certainly understand those feelings and emotions. Look, Indy is 6.5 point favorites in this one. Some of the advanced stats suggest it's, if this was on a neutral field, it might be closer to a coin flip. So certainly Vegas and the analytics expect it to be pretty close. If A&M wins this one, what do you think is the biggest thing that went your way? If Notre Dame wins this one, what do you think went our way? And overall, how are you feeling about the game? How do you think this one shakes out?
So, all right. If A&M wins, it's gonna be because we see, like, if Marcel is on his game, I don't know. I don't know what defense is gonna stop him. I He's that good. But the thing is he doesn't play up there very often. But if he plays up there, that's going to be the reason we win. Or if Le'Veon Moss is up at 130, 175 yards, that's going to be the reason we win. The reason Notre Dame wins, exact. If y'all are in the third down conversion range above 65%, you're going to win. If y'all are keeping the defense on the field, if y'all kill the time of possession and keep Marcel off the field, y'all are going to win. And then how I'm overall feeling on this, I think it's going to be a gross game. I think it's going to be one of those like 23-16, like just a nasty, weird score.
Kind of like last year, another
Yeah,
rock fight.
exactly. I think it's going to be gross. I honestly think it could be a coin flip. I'm going to say A&M wins just because of my loyalty, but I do think it could be a coin flip. I genuinely do not know what I'm going to see, but I know that the floor is pretty high.
That's what's always exciting about September football. We're still learning a lot about our team and a long ways to go. Tom, thanks for joining the show. Really appreciate getting your insights on all things Aggie football, and best of luck to you guys this weekend.
Sweet, man. Appreciate you having me on.
Sweet. Mike, I've really enjoyed getting to be part of these interviews, just like Miami Nights. I think we learned a little more intel on the trenches of Miami that, frankly, I think caught a lot of Notre Dame fans by surprise. But if you're following the podcast, you got that inside look from Miami Nights. I think it gave you a deeper appreciation for that matchup. I think same thing here in Agnox. Break down this Texas A&M team where they're covering it as passionately and in depth as we cover Notre Dame football. I think brings a really balanced view heading into this home opener where Notre Dame is 6.5 point favorites. SP Plus, it's had a lot of movement early on in the season. Notre Dame's actually slightly above A&M, maybe more like a 0.5 point favorite on a neutral field. That's probably 4.5 points at home. So, we're a little, I'd say, in between. The Vegas line likes Notre Dame a little bit more than the advanced metrics does. Mike, here in that interview, dissecting this A&M matchup, I'll maybe give you the closing thoughts here as we get into score predictions. What are your thoughts on this A&M team and how they match up with the Irish?
I expect this to be a tight game. Texas A&M, loaded roster with talent. The question is whether or not they're going to be able to put it together. I think they have more questions on offense. I think Marcel Reed at quarterback is someone who has a ton of potential, great runner, has flashed that potential at times in the passing game, but not consistently against top competition. He's had some difficulties protecting the ball at times, in many cases fumbling the ball. So it'll be interesting to see if some of the early passing momentum that we've seen, it's not like they've had excellent passing numbers, but they've put together strong numbers. Granted, it was against weaker competition. It'll be interesting to see if that holds up at all against a tougher Notre Dame defense. And where's their passing game? Maybe there are a few more questions there. I expect their run game to be solid for sure. They have a great offensive line. They have stronger backs. I think that running game is actually better than Miami's potentially. I think the offensive lines you could say are comparable, but Texas A&M arguably has better backs. But that interestingly, that is one area that I think Notre Dame. We called this out in our. We've called this out multiple times, but that's one area where Notre Dame's defense held up okay. Actually, was in the run game. We weren't getting killed in our run defense, and that was an area that we were a little bit weaker last year. We'll see if that holds up against Texas A&M. I think it will. So for me, I think where this gets interesting is Notre Dame's offense versus Texas A&M's defense. Obviously, CJ Carr had a few mistakes, but I thought had a very impressive showing overall against Miami. Uh, One thing that's going through my mind is, does that mean the training wheels are off? Are we going to try to push it deep? Miami's, or not Miami, Texas A&M secondary uh, has shown some early signs of improvement versus last year, but uh, I think if we take the training wheels off, there's a possibility that CJ Carr is able to make them pay a little bit. Um, but that's if we can keep him protected. And Texas A&M, look, they certainly have what I would believe to be a strong defensive line. It's not going to be as great as their defensive line last year. They lost multiple people to the draft, early picks. I think it's still like a really really strong room, but a little bit of a step back. But the question is whether or not Notre Dame's offensive line can actually hold up, against that. I think in terms of running the ball, I think that's an area where maybe we could maybe push it a little bit, and that's an area that actually worked really well for us last year. We had explosive running plays against Texas A&M last year. For me, I think that's probably going to be the difference. I think we're going to see the run game become more effective. There were signs against Miami that the run game, while we didn't get a ton out of it, was there. There were certainly signs of life there. There were also it was productive when we used it. Maybe not as much as we would have liked, but there were also a number of plays where we were just one missed block away from a huge explosive play. I expect the offensive line to do a bit better with that in this game, and I think the run game for Notre Dame in particular this game is going to be more impactful. So I know that's a lot that I just said, but if you put that all together, I think we have a little bit of an edge overall. I think that explosive run game. I think we see that. I think that becomes more of an edge for Notre Dame this game. I think CJ Carr does enough to keep them honest. So overall, I got this game 27-21, which is Notre Dame winning, but narrowly missing the spread.
Yeah, I've came in really bullish on Notre Dame in the Miami game. Actually, thought they were going to win by multiple scores. I was wrong. I'll take that one. It was much closer to what the analytics predicted in a coin flip. I continue to have a ton of belief in this team. I think there's a lot of Notre Dame heat out there right now from the fan base on Mike Denbrock and Chris Ash and the offensive and defensive lines. I think it's a little blown out of proportion here in Notre Dame land. I think this is more game one learning curve against a really tough opponent. And I think that's a big advantage for Notre Dame here to have had that really tough test in Miami, have that edge now coming back, knowing that there's a lot of pressure on this game to get the team locked in. I think A&M playing a couple of softer games early where, frankly, they looked vulnerable gives me a little more confidence. Obviously, they still pulled away and won those games easily, but certainly some moments of vulnerability in their first two matchups. I've got this one being a back and forth game. I think it's going to be close for a long time, but I've got Notre Dame pulling away, winning 31-20, covering the Vegas and SP plus spread. But again, A&M has a ton of talent. They're built from the trenches, just like Notre Dame. Wouldn't be at all surprised if this one comes down to the wire and is closer than that. But I'm going to lean heavily here on the Freeman rebound effect with Notre Dame pulling this one away 31-20. So with that, Irish beat Aggies.
Irish beat Aggies.